Oh, I like
I'm
that.
definitely here for it.
Mm-hmm. Is that the lip bar?
Yeah.
Girl, that look good on you. Girl, I'm going to have to get me some.
Yeah, I did the Coco Jones.
Oh, is that what you did? Mm-hmm. Oh, that look good.
Yep.
Sorry, Bill. Sir Lips.
I have never felt more like a third wheel in my life. Like, I am just an observer against the wall watching y'all talk, not knowing what you're talking about.
Listen.
Oh, my God. That looks good, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I could tell. That's good quality when you can look at it and tell exactly what it is.
That's the set.
That's all three.
Now, I don't have on the clear one because it's a little,
It's a glossy.
Right. And
Wow.
this is the third one. I mean, the second one. It's like a natural one. It's darker.
Oh, I like the natural one.
And we're out of time. We thank Teresa Goodman for joining us today. That was a very enlightening discussion, and we wish you the best in your Maybelline career. Welcome to episode 72 of Black, White, and Blue in the South, the podcast discussing Democratic politics with a Southern flair. I'm Bill Kimler.
I'm Jamil Brooks.
And I am Teresa Goodman.
Wonderful, and we are coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. If you like what you hear and really think others ought to be listening as well, then you need to hit pause right now and leave a rating for our show. Write a little review. Tell your friends about us. Interact with us on social media. Or better yet, if you missed part 1 of our show with Teresa, then go back and listen to last week's episode first. Then return with ears ablazing and your brain synapses firing away as we covered even more topics with this incredible guest. Before we get to the interview, I also want to talk about a personal story. So this is going to be Bill talk. Okay. I'm going to give a little Bill talk here. Okay. Last time you talked about when you had contact with your opponent in the last election, and you called me about it.
Yeah.
And you didn't know it at the time, but I was in Arkansas when you called me. So I want to talk about that trip and what Bill was doing in Arkansas.
Okay.
Well, it all goes back to episode 53 of our show.
Wow.
Believe it or not. That's where this trip started from. Back then, I was telling you, this was in February, of how my car broke down on my way to watch an Eagles Super Bowl, right? And I threw a side comment out there is that in my family, I had a distant relative who was on the Philadelphia Eagles, so there was a connection. That's something I had heard growing up all my life, that on my mother's side of the family, the Italian side, she's a Mazzanti, that we had a Mazzanti who was on the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's why it's in our blood. We rooted for the Philadelphia Eagles ever since.
Okay.
Well, I never actually knew that to be a fact. I just heard it.
Okay.
So I figured before I published that episode, I better go look this up and fact check myself because I was about to cut that whole segment out.
Oh, wow.
So I went and did a little Google searching, Mazzanti, Eagles, bam, got a hit.
Okay.
Jerry Mazzanti was drafted as a rookie into the Philadelphia Eagles in the mid-'60s. He was a star running back from Arkansas and then got drafted, and then he went into military service, and then he went and played several more years. According to his obituary, he played for the Lions, the Vikings, the Steelers. He played for those teams while he was taking classes at law school.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not.
Okay, good job.
So when he was done with his NFL career, he got a law degree, went back and worked in Arkansas, where he was then appointed by Governor Bill Clinton at the time to serve in a larger role, and he was over multiple districts.
Yeah.
And then when I looked up his obituary, he had died just this January.
Oh, wow.
A month after I did the research. So he had just passed away, and I saw all this information about him. So I'm thinking, okay, next, how is Jerry Mazzanti related? Now I needed to figure out the blood connection. So this guy, Jerry Mazzanti, was from a small area called Lake Village, Arkansas, right? Small farming town.
Okay.
My grandfather, my mother's father, whom I'd never met because he had left that family while my mom was still in her teens, right? He was out of the picture. None of us ever knew him. But he had died maybe 8 years ago, and I looked up his obituary. Guess where he was born?
Where?
Lake Village, Arkansas. So here's Jerry Mazzanti, and then here's my grandfather, Valentino Mazzanti. Valentine, Ms. Andy, went by John. Both in Lake Village, there's a connection.
Yeah.
And my sister got involved, went through genealogical records. We could not find a blood connection at all. We went up several generations. But in that research, I learned that there was a book that was written. And I'm going to pull this up on the screen. There is a book about this area of Arkansas called The Italians of Sunnyside. So here's the story, and this is an amazing story. Arkansas, cotton plantations, big farming area after the Civil War. And of course, the slaves were like, see ya, we're out of here. There was nobody to work those farms and plantations.
Okay.
They went and somehow recruited Italians from this one area called Ostra, Italy. And they got a priest involved, because very Roman Catholic, and convinced all of these families to come over to the United States to work on these farms. So here they were in this beautiful paradise of an Italian village, and they end up in the worst climate, sticky, hot, malaria, heat waves. I mean, you've been in these southern states. It's no picnic in the summertime, especially if you're working in the fields, but they became sharecroppers. And that's where my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother came over from Italy in the 1910 and landed with a bunch of other Italian families in this area of Arkansas and some adjacent areas to work the farms. And they lived in the same shacks that the slaves had lived in just 30 years prior. And in fact, in this book, there's a picture of my grandfather that I found as a kid. Now, he is the second boy on the left, the middle child there. He's looking over to his left. That's my grandfather.
Oh.
So, and he was one of 12 children born in Lake Village, Arkansas, from first-generation immigrants.
Wow.
So, and I had no knowledge. I mean, I'm 50-something years old now. I had zero knowledge of any of this history. So I'm thinking, boy, this is crazy.
Wow.
Right? And I just got this bug where I needed to go see it.
Yeah.
It's like, I never knew my grandfather. I never knew this history, and I'm feeling this connection. I'm reading this book. And so in August, I took a weekend and said, I'm just going to drive out to Arkansas, see what I could see. No plan. I don't know anybody out there. I'm just going to go see what's what. So I drove out there, very easy drive, about 10-hour drive. First of all, let me tell you this. We complain about South Carolina roads, right? Is that kind of the thing we like to do? Drive through Mississippi, you would be missing South Carolina roads.
Wow.
I'm driving through Alabama, and the roads are fine, the highway's fine. And then you could see up in the distance where the state line is, because you get off the highway and it's like dirt road all the way through Mississippi.
Wow.
Like there is no infrastructure in Mississippi. Isn't that a saying here in South Carolina? People say, thank God for Mississippi. They make us look good.
I don't know.
That's something I've heard.
Okay.
But they live up to it. So anyhow, through Mississippi, and then once I got into Arkansas, the Lake Village was right there.
Yeah.
And it was right across the Mississippi River. I'll show a couple of pictures here. That's Lake
pretty.
Chico. So that's an offshoot of the Mississippi River. So a beautiful land. Absolutely beautiful. Lake Village is small, about 2,000 plus residents.
Okay.
So it's not big at all. One hotel. I thought this was an actual guy, right? I'm like, I saw him in the distance looking at the lake.
Yeah.
And like, no, it was just a little statue cut out. It wasn't like I went up to say hi, and it wasn't even a real guy. But then, of course, it wouldn't be the South if I didn't have
You're going to have one.
a Confederate monument.
There you
Of
go.
course.
And that it was to the Confederate soldiers of Chico County, the record of whose sublime self-sacrifice and undying devotion. Devotion to what? Undying devotion is the proud heritage of a loyal posterity. Anyhow, of course, every Southern town has to have,
Gotta have it.
the lost cause memorials to the poor Confederate soldiers. But the place was run down. I mean, this Lake Village is depressed. Like I drove through, quote unquote, downtown. I mean, it was just a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
But you can see junkyards. You can see abandoned grocery stores, burnt out buildings right on their main street. Very little in the way of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And from what I learned, it's getting worse.
Oh.
So the first thing I did is I got there after a 10-hour drive, and then I sat and grabbed some dinner at a little diner there. And I told the owner of the diner, what I was doing. I'm here to visit family, the Mazzanis, blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, another guy comes up to me and says, you know what? You need to read about this book. There's a book about the Italians in this area. And I held up my book. I said, I got that book. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I said, you need to meet the lady that wrote that book. And then he gives me her address and directions to her house.
Wow.
Says, you go down this street, make a left, and there's the second white house on the left. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to knock on some strange lady's door, you know.
Wow.
But he made it sound like she was friendly and open to it. Anyhow, I get back to the hotel, and I was like, well, I was just going to drive around town Saturday, take some pictures, send it back to the family, but let me see if I can find this lady's phone number. I found it, called her, she picked up. And she said right from the outset, I don't know why I picked up this phone. And I said, well, listen, I have relatives here, the Mazzantis. She said, oh, I know the Mazzantis, and I know all this. She wrote the book, so she has the genealogies.
Oh, okay.
And she said, all right, well, I'm glad I picked up. Meet me at this museum tomorrow, and I'll pull out all my documents and let you look, and we'll show some more pictures that aren't in the book. And she was willing to spend the morning with me at this museum. And I thought, how lovely.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, that was very nice.
So the next day, Saturday comes, I have some breakfast, then I go meet her. Not only did she let me into the museum, she found 3 relatives who wanted to meet me. 3 of what would be my mother's first cousins, who my mother never had met. But this would be her father's brother's 3 kids.
Yeah.
They wanted to meet this side of the family because apparently my grandfather was somewhat of a black sheep and didn't keep in touch with nobody. So they know nothing about my family or the kids or any of my own cousins and my aunt and uncle. So they met with me and spent the whole day with me. We met, we talked. They showed me this book that had my great-grandparents' immigration papers and photographs of their wedding. And they told me about life in the area. And first of all, it's a big farming community. They are screwed. They are absolutely screwed. They have crops that are still harvested from last year filled up in their granaries that they can't sell because of tariffs and the shutdown of the farming economy. And they've got nowhere to put this year's harvest when it's like they're now in the middle of harvesting. They got nowhere to put it. And they're estimating 75% of the farmers are about to go under because they just can't withstand this. It's a whole year of lost crops.
Wow.
And so they're definitely hurting, and you can put that at Trump's doorstep. So,
And that's Arkansas.
this is Arkansas.
Who's the governor?
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Well done,
Which
Sarah.
I knew that, right? Because we all know who she is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got there and I went to the travel center and I saw Governor Sarah. I go, oh my God, she really is the governor. I thought that was like a joke or something. She really is the governor
No,
there.
it might be a joke, and that's why they're suffering.
Anyhow, heavy Republican state, but they are suffering. But there I am with my mom's 3 cousins and their daughter. You can see the younger ones, obviously the daughter, but
Yeah.
you can see the family resemblance. They're a tiny group. My mom's tiny too.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's really funny to see. But just
That's interesting, Bill.
I made it there with no plans whatsoever except just to drive around, eat, stay at the hotel, then drive home. And I ended up meeting family. They've invited me out for another family reunion. One of them owns the only Chinese restaurant in town, and she gave me free dinner to take, which was really cool. Anyhow, it was an absolutely wonderful meeting, and I couldn't be happier. This is another one of my relatives. It turns out my great aunt was a nun. You know, very Catholic family. I mean, this whole family, they revolve around the Catholic Church in town.
Yeah.
So very religious and spiritual.
Wow.
And I've got a nun in my family. So I thought that was an interesting,
I think that's cool,
interesting
Bill.
story.
It's very cool.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You know, it's even cooler that you were able to trace that history.
Yeah.
See, that's the importance of making sure that you keep the documentation of history. But it seems that process might be under attack with removing history. You got something that you can go back and look at and say, here's what happened. They were, and I wrote down one thing that you said. You said that the role of the priest convinced all of those people to come here. That triggered slavery for me.
Yeah. Well, when they came here, they died by the hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean, a third of the
Yes.
migrants did not survive the weather and the
Yes.
diseases and the lack of care. And
Yep.
they were in extreme poverty. But
Yeah.
now, 3 generations, one of those guys that I met, he's a lawyer. Another one works for the Farm Bureau. Another one runs the Chinese restaurant. I mean, so, and then their kids are off to college. And so it took a couple of generations to work out of that poverty. But the stories they told about, I mean, they showed me where my great-grandparents lived. They lived in a shack.
Yeah.
Right? They showed me the farms where they worked, and it's brutal labor.
That's why you can't stop telling them stories. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to have those family meetings where you're documenting and you are sharing what life looked like before, so you can make sure that you continue to move forward and not revert backwards.
Well,
I think that was powerful.
I think what it left me with also is kind of a motivation to continue to work hard and make sure that the sacrifice of my ancestors, who never knew me, Like, in fact, it was funny. My great-grandmother passed away in the early 90s. Like, she was alive when I was alive, and I never knew she existed. Like, if you knew your great-grandma was around, you would go visit great-grandma, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea she even existed and missed that opportunity. And I do wish I had a chance to go visit, but it wasn't meant to be. Again, coming back to the most ignorant statement you've heard.
We said there was more.
Let's talk about this little piece of ignorance up on the screen right now. So, Teresa, would you describe what it is we're looking at and what we're showing our audience?
We are looking at the first flyer that came out to talk about Christmas through the colonies, which was the selected parade theme for the 2025 Greenwood Christmas Parade.
Now, we talked about this an episode or so
just
ago.
let her read that part down at the...
Oh.
Read that part for me.
Yeah, listen. This is the part that sent me to the moon.
Come on now.
It says, think 1776.
Yay.
But make it festive. Santa suits, powdered wigs, parading patriots, and Christmas spirit from every colony.
Ain't that some shit?
So we have an annual.
Yes, it is.
We have. Well, I gotta get my bleep button out.
Get your button out, Bill. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do right.
But feel free. We're okay. We talked about this a couple of episodes ago, and here in Greenwood, South Carolina, there's an annual Christmas parade. And by the way, most people don't realize it is a themed parade every year.
Every year.
Last year, what it was Hollywood Christmas, right?
It was like
you were on a platform with Scrooge, weren't you?
Yeah, because we had to do it. It had to be a Christmas movie theme.
Right.
Right. So there is a theme every year. This year, because they're trying to align it with the 250th birthday of the United States, they wanted 1776 powdered wigs. Now, when people were grumbling about it, this was a decision made by the city to put out this theme. And then Teresa put up a Facebook post that went quite viral. and I don't know if you want to read the whole thing to us, Teresa, or you just want to hit the highlights. But what were some of the concerns you raised when you saw this? Why are you so opposed to powdered wigs? What's the hang up here?
Well, I didn't necessarily have an opposition to the powdered wigs. Here, and people forgot that I asked a question.
You did.
That actually never was answered. My question, I never said...
Oh, it was answered in the comments, all right. We saw it was answered.
Yeah, if you had to put a little thought to it. But the thing about it was, what I asked for was their reasoning. Why would you select this as your theme? It did not communicate community. It did not communicate unity. It did not communicate Christmas. Because if you do your historical checks, Santa Claus wasn't even a thing back then. You know what I'm saying? Like, Christmas was almost a pagan holiday at that point.
Yes.
So it's a lot more than just the racial overtone.
Yep.
You didn't fact check anything for 1776. As a woman, as a person of color, my folks were enslaved in 1776. So how exactly do you want me to participate?
We can't come.
And I think that they actually thought that that was cute. And here's the other thing. I don't have a problem with folks deciding, hey, we want to celebrate the 250th year of our nation. But last I checked, we had a holiday for that already. It's called the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. So why not do a 4th of July parade and allow whoever would like to celebrate to celebrate? But, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I just thought this totally missed the mark. It was ignorant and not well thought through, and it did not communicate community at all.
Well, I think the city heard you loud and clear, because the next day they took down the theme and they apologized in, I guess, a manner that Jamil didn't fully buy into, but there was something of apology made, an explanation made, and they said, we're going to go back to the drawing board and think it through. And just a couple of days ago, they came up with Plan B. So let's talk about this new poster, this new theme, and how it's so radically different than what they had asked for before. Jamil, you want to give a little summary of what you see here?
Yeah. So
what's the new theme of the Christmas parade?
It is a celebration of community and the season wrapped in red, white, and blue.
And let's just go ahead and not call it, the next iteration. This is flyer 1.B.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
a 1.A or higher.
So what I told someone said to me, did you not notice that they changed the theme? I said, I noticed that they changed the name,
right,
and kept the theme.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the same thing.
They threw the word community in there.
It's still the same thing.
And it's the
season. And because we put Christmas trees and little bows and balls on it, don't make it a Christmas parade. It doesn't. It ain't. It don't get my vote. It don't get my vote.
I'll be at home twinkling my toes, drinking some hot chocolate with extra marshmallows on that particular day.
I just don't see the need to combine the two.
Well, first of all, it's not even 2026 yet. So you're celebrating the 250.
It ain't got there.
Yeah, it hadn't got here yet. You have an entire year to do this.
I think what kind of bothers a lot of people, myself included, kind of goes back to the whole concept of Christian nationalism. We get uncomfortable when we see Christianity and patriotism blending together so tightly. And for a lot of people, it's a religion in and of itself. You know, you can't worship the cross without having the United States flag there to salute as well. And when you go to any county council meeting or any public meeting, you're opening up of the Bible class, essentially. Yeah. It's lengthy prayers, it's quotes from scriptures, and then you get down to the people's business.
Yeah.
And I've always been uncomfortable with that because that means you are selecting a religion right out of the gate in order to conduct professional business. And this is a city-sponsored parade for Christmas, which is a religious holiday, but now you're really trying to cram in patriotism and Americanism into that mix.
I guess my issue with the original and then what do we want to call that? Plan B?
Plan B.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My issue is still the same here. These ideas and these thoughts are being pushed out into the public, and it impacts a large amount of its citizens. So if you were truly aware of the people that you serve, somebody should have tapped somebody on the shoulder and said, maybe we need to do something a little different before we let this go. But no one is looking at the impact that this has. Greenwood City is predominantly black.
Yes, it is.
And so to slap black folk in the face, you say, come on, we're going to party like it's 1776.
Right. So, Teresa, what are you going to say to the rumors that you are holding a competing parade? Is that true that you're organizing a counter parade to this parade?
I would defer to answer. Listen, I'm going to tell you the truth that I would defer to answer that, but there are enough conversations that if we want to have that can happen. One of the things that we're not going to do is just keep asking to be heard and to be seen. Those days are long gone.
Right.
If you are going to plan something and you are in an elected position that represents a city that has different cultural concepts, respect those cultural concepts or get up out that seat.
And here's the other thing to that. If you live in the city and you're a person of color, pay attention.
Come on.
Pay attention. If you have not exercised your right that people died for to vote, pay attention. Get your behinds up and go vote, because these folks are telling you that they don't even count you in to make a decision. And that is an issue for me.
Let me tell y'all something. I had a conversation with somebody. I know Bill got an agenda, but there's a conversation I had with somebody who brought something to my attention I never thought about. Did you know that in Greenwood, our city manager position is not an elected position? Nobody really thinks about that position not being an elected position. So you typically hire the assistant. And if the city manager goes, then you promote that assistant manager, right? That's typically what happens. That's a problem. I think that's a problem. And when I had this conversation with this person, I went, I never thought about that. That's something that we need to dive into, because if this is going to be a position that really represents all of the city of Greenwood, then the city of Greenwood should have some impact on who sits in that chair.
Well, let me give you another viewpoint to look at it from. If the employees and the decision makers for the city of Greenwood were diverse, even if it was a hired position, which it is, then you would have diverse voices who would be able to represent various parts of the community.
True.
Which is one of the problems, is why that thing went over the first time, because you did not have diverse voices, thought processes. It was cute. It was, oh, okay, and let's do it. And there was also some autonomy of the folks who selected it, who didn't bother to run it by anybody else.
True.
And so those are issues. And so diversity, what diversity does is brings in different thought processes. It brings in different points of views. It brings in different experiences. And those things all play to make the world better. Let's talk specifically about Greenwood. It makes Greenwood better when all three of us can share our educated point of views, our feeling point of views, our experience point of views, so that we make a decision that best represents everybody. Back to my post, one of the things that I said in the post was a parade should want to bring unity to our community. It should represent everybody. Everybody who wants to come to that parade should come, feel welcome, and feel a part of it. And that was my issue from the start. I don't feel welcome. I don't feel a part, but I also think that was a strategic move because maybe we want you not to feel a part.
The 2,000 comments under your post showed a lot of community unity, let me tell you.
Yeah. So I want to thank them for posting that, because that's the unity or the catalyst or the enzyme that we needed to let you know that there is a unified front here, and you just bumped into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Well, Teresa, we thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the time you spent with us today. We're going to cover some additional topics. Would you like to stay and join us on this?
I would love to.
Yay.
All right.
Yay.
Well, let's do this. We are going to start with our next segment.
Your South Carolina representatives at work.
Every time I see that man.
You can't get enough of seeing Billy Garrett up there, can you?
Every time I see that man.
Well, the first topic I'm going to address that was dealt with at Columbia in the State House has to deal with the Article 5 Convention of States. Have you heard of this?
I know what a convention of states is, which I think is scary, but I didn't know that South Carolina was considering.
So from Common Cause, the following quote, wealthy donors, corporations, and radical far-right actors are pushing calls for an Article 5 convention in states across the country to reshape our Constitution for their own benefit. Frighteningly, they are just a few states away from succeeding.
This is what every listener or viewer needs to listen to. When we're talking about this convention of states, it will go under the radar. But this is scary, scary, scary. Okay, Bill, go ahead and
So
tell
here in South Carolina, there have been several bills submitted by Republican lawmakers to have South Carolina join this call for a convention of states. And it's kind of odd because you would think there'd be some sort of time box around this. This has been going on for decades. So as long as you get enough states, like over 50 years, to go on board, then it can be called. And once it's called, that means the Constitution of the United States can get altered.
Yes.
So anyhow, I'm not really here to talk about this particular bill or this initiative, but rather a very interesting point that one of our favorite, most quotable House representatives, who is that?
Heather.
No, she's one.
No, it's, I can't give you his name.
Justin
Bamberg. Representative Bamberg.
Justin Bamberg spoke up and made a point that I thought was spot on. Let's take a watch as to how this went down.
Next up, 3558. This is relating to the establishment of procedures for the selection of commissioners to serve at the Convention of States. So Representative Taylor and other are the sponsors of the bill. This basically, members of the committee, again, just sets up criteria by which the General Assembly would select commissioners to serve in the event.
By the way, that is Representative Jay Jordan speaking, not Justin Bamberg. Jay Jordan speaks first, then Bamberg speaks next.
The Convention of States were to take place. It also puts forward some guidelines, as you will see in the proposed legislation, related to how the service of those commissioners. Also provides a mechanism in the event any one or all of the commissioners were to be recalled by the General Assembly. I don't believe we have anyone signed up to speak. Any questions or comments? Representative Bamberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's one provision of this that I think should be changed, and the provision would exclude folks from being a commissioner if they had a felony, I think, on their record within what was it, 5 or 10 years or so, something like that. I think it's 10 years, within 10 years. And, you know, for what it is, you can be president with a felony. You should be able to be a doggone commissioner to the Convention of States. So I think that we need to look at that part, you know, and I think in all legislation that comes before us, we need to actually start looking at some of the restrictions on people, you know, maybe characterizing violent felonies versus nonviolent felonies in a lot of different realms, but this is what's before us. So I just did happen to see that and wanted to just note that for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Bamberg. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee?
Teresa, I watch hundreds of hours of these committee hearings. This is kind of my side project. It's
I don't know how you do this.
But I watch it. And I also watch it at like double speed. So it's really funny watching them all talk. Like, he sounds drunk to me in this clip because I'm hearing it at normal speed.
Yeah.
Right. But when I hear it, it's really sped up. But true to his word, in just about every meeting that he's in, wherever there is a restriction on any appointed position due to felonies, he's bringing up, I'm going to put an amendment in that, you know, to get rid of that felonies thing. Because if we have a president who has 34 felonies, convictions, he can be president, then we should allow this position the same benefit.
I don't know why that's not common knowledge.
So bravo, Justin. And he's the only Democrat in that committee, and he's scared of no one. He's going to say his piece.
He's going to say it. And you can tell that the rest of them are completely unconcerned.
Yes. Oh, there was no reaction. They didn't even look his way. But he said his piece. We heard his piece, and he's brought it up every time since. So good for you.
Thank you, Justin.
Representative Bamberg. We wish we had you as our representative. Oh, gosh. All right, next topic. This is an interesting one. I've got a couple of moms here in the room, right?
Yep. Yes, you do.
So we're going to talk about moms for a second because we're going to hear from a couple of moms testifying about the Guardian Ad Litem program. Do you know what that program is?
Yes.
All right. Who wants to describe it or explain it?
It's almost like a child's representative that is there to act as their liaison.
In what situations?
In a situation where the parents may not have been able to be. I don't want to say it in a...
Well, it's usually in some sort of legal proceeding.
Yeah.
So like a divorce or something, or custody hearing, the court appoints an independent person as guardian ad litem.
To speak on their behalf.
And they...
To advocate for their well-being.
Yeah. And they actually go and observe the child. They go meet the parents. They kind of get involved in the business to be another voice outside of the two lawyers that represent the two parties. Here's a third party.
Yeah.
Well, they were holding a hearing because they're looking to reform some things about guardians ad litem and what powers that they have in a court and how their voices should carry weight compared to the lawyers' voices. And there's just some concerns about this program that have been out there. So a committee has been formed to hear about it.
Okay.
We're going to hear from two mothers who have had issues with guardians ad litem. I want you to listen for a pattern here. All right, ready?
Go.
The first is a mom named Lisa.
But there is absolutely nothing I can do. Not nothing. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. My daughter was in the 2nd grade going into 3rd. Now she's in the 9th. She'll be 15 Monday. And I asked them, why do I not have my child? Tell me. Y'all were supposed to prove I was unfit. They'll just say, well, you know, I'm a conservative. I'm a Bible believer. I've taught Sunday school for years, Vacation Bible School. They'll say that my faith is too fanaticky. That's not a good reason. This is South Carolina, what's left of her. America, what's left of her. You know, I'm a conservative. This is my belief. I don't criticize theirs, so why do they feel they have a right to criticize mine? And everything is false accusations. They'll say that people that's been on the case that have passed away, that I'm praying for these people to die.
So what, you were expecting some testimony, but what I saw in this hearing were a lot of grievances that fell into this same pattern. You got a thoughtful look on your face, Teresa.
But I want to see the second video before I...
Oh, you want to hold your thought till the second one? Mm-hmm. Okay, well then
so that we can establish this pattern that you mentioned.
Let's go right into the second one. This is a woman named Meg.
So mine was chosen by the opposing attorney in my case, and I was agreeable to it because I wasn't aware that she was going to be biased. I'd never met her. I have a very open mind. I do think all their decisions should be based on facts, which hers a lot were not. I met with her initially in her office and immediately recognized her bias against me. I'm a Christian. She's not. I'm a very outspoken Trump-supporting Republican. She is a liberal lesbian. She could tell right away from looking at me that she did not like me. And she made it very clear throughout the entire process. I was also a stay-at-home mother, which seems to be a problem in Horry County with the judges and certain lawyers having absolute disdain for stay-at-home mothers.
Okay, so those are the two clips I pulled from these two mamas who have problems with their guardians ad litem and the courts.
Everything just becomes so political. So the guardian ad litems are not doing their job because the women who are excellent mothers are Trump supporters and conservatives. And because they are conservatives, they feel as though they are being penalized.
Well, there's no bigger victim in South Carolina than the Christian conservative MAGA mom.
That's it.
Right? Like, they're the biggest victims in town.
That's it.
I'm sorry, Teresa, are your eyes okay? Because they were rolling so hard over there. They must be sprained.
I think that we have gone too far. We have gone too far as people. We have gone too far because we're putting way too much. We're giving people too much credit. We're giving people too much room for opposition because of what you choose in the voting box. We have gone away from what needs to be the center of what I consider the so-called United States of America. And it is not what party you vote for.
It is not.
Because on a daily basis, what you do, how you choose to be, who you choose to represent, how you choose to care for your neighbor should be the thing as opposed to what you check in that box. And this to me is just ridiculous that people are having grievances simply because another person does not agree with you and your political choice. That is crazy to me. I didn't hear anything about the real reason. Why would your child not be with you? Is this child being mistreated? Let's get to the crux of the problem. Get past this. And the fact that you can stand up and have these type conversations bothers me on a level because who even mentioned the child?
This is what I mean by everything is trying to turn political when it shouldn't be.
It should not.
Each of these ladies came in and order to win and to sway. Yep. They needed to go ahead and let it be known that I am conservative because in their mind, conservatism is the right way.
Exactly.
And anyone else that's coming in to tell me what to do is wrong if they're not conservative.
And then when she doesn't get her way, it's because.
That's what it is.
It's because of that. And yet we're in South Carolina where there is no more privileged individual than the white Christian conservative. They run the state. They really do. Legislatively, you take a look at the makeup of the legislative body. That's that right there.
I told you, we put so much emphasis on being a part of a group, but it's the very structure of the group that can be used against people. So here we are saying you don't want, a group is great. But look at here. This is what we have to deal with in terms of.
Well, let me put up
It's very sad.
It's pathetic.
Yeah. Well, Teresa, you brought your child with you today, and he's had several birthdays in the other room while we've been recording.
Wait, no,
He's right there.
We'll bring him in at the end.
Okay,
right?
you can tell me he was here.
Yeah, he's in the other room playing on a game, and it better be one of those, massive epic scrollers that they'll take him forever to get through. Do you have time for one more topic?
Sure.
Okay, let's do this then.
For up-to-the-minute reports, stay tuned to this station. Now the news.
The topic we're going to close with today involves Medicaid and Medicare cuts. We have in the studio with us two individuals who live in the world of medical services. Teresa talked about it a bit already with the community initiatives and the La Clinica Gratis program. And Jamil, you also work in the healthcare industry, right?
Yeah,
what
the
do you
Nest
do?
Home Healthcare.
That's right. And both of you, do you get involved with Medicaid, Medicare?
Yeah, Medicaid is a big funder for me.
Right, and we don't.
Well, in any event, it all is about healthcare services, which is near and dear to all of our hearts. But one thing I always get confused by, I just want to start off with, is what's the difference between Medicaid and Medicare? How do we get them straight in my head?
I like to say you care for the elderly and you aid everyone else.
So it's care for the elderly and disabled.
Yes.
Right? And then it's aid for the poor, right? For everybody who can't afford healthcare.
But some people can have Medicare and Medicaid.
And they can have both. Okay. But I use them almost interchangeably, like they're synonyms, and they're not.
And
they're very
not.
different programs.
Yeah.
Well, we've had this thing they called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that had passed over the summer, which absolutely guts Medicaid and Medicare. And according to one article from the Center for American Progress, they said that those who need Medicaid the most, you aid the poor, right? Those who need Medicaid the most, including people with disabilities and the elderly, will be affected by the bill's cuts. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimated that this bill will cut federal spending on Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, benefits by $1 trillion due to eliminating at least 10.5 million people from the programs by 2034. Research shows that when federal funding for Medicaid decreases, guess what happens then? States start to cut as well. So these optional benefits such as home and community-based services, these HCBSs, they get cut first, and then it doesn't just affect those who need the services. Now you're also talking about these cuts affecting hospitals, closing healthcare facilities, workforce layoffs, etc. So this is absolutely nuts. Here's one study that said that there is a waiver you can get for these HCBS services. It says that the funds from this bill would only be able to cover these costs for about 27 people per state.
Good God.
Per state. Like that's what the federal government's willing to kick in if you give a waiver. 27 lucky people in a state would get this federal funding. Before I go into much detail, I do want to play a video of somebody I thought did a fantastic job countering the Republican claim about the Medicaid cuts in this bill, where the first voice you hear is somebody who says, this isn't bad at all. And then the second voice is the fact-based voice that's going to say, listen, this is where you're wrong. This is why it's a problem.
Okay.
They're framing it like he's just snatching 12 million people's health coverage away for no reason, when what's really happening here is Trump introduced a work requirement saying that before you can receive health coverage free of charge from the government, you have to work at least 80 hours per month.
This figure breaks down adults on Medicaid by category. There are only 4.3 million people without one of the documented exceptions he's talking about. Only 4.3 million able-bodied adults who aren't working who are on Medicaid. So you really can't cut 12 million of those people because there aren't 12 million. And when you look at adults on Medicaid who aren't working, you see it's mainly older people. So if we look at men specifically, women are disproportionately involved in childcare. If we look at men specifically, we see that young men have employment rates of about 90%, and that falls off as they get older. You could imagine a man who's worked construction his entire life, as he hits his late 50s, early 60s, it's hard to keep doing that work. And he may have medical problems that don't quite qualify him as disabled, but do make it hard for him to work, and he needs insurance. That aged construction worker would be one of the 4.3 million. One of the free riders this guy says we should kick off of Medicaid.
You have to work at least 80 hours per month. That is a whopping 2 weeks of full-time labor out of every month. These are meant to be social safety nets, not forever and ever gravy trains that you can just ride while refusing to work.
I'm not sure how he thinks Medicaid works, how it could be a gravy train that people are living off of. Medicaid doesn't give people money. If you are low income, Medicaid will pay for your health care because you can't afford to pay for it. Remember, only 4 out of 12 million people who he wants to take health care away from fit the category he's describing. Only 4 out of 12 million people are healthy and not working. It costs very little to give those people government health insurance because by definition, if you're healthy, you don't need that much health care. You're healthy. Median beneficiary spending in this category is only $142. If you're a 35-year-old man, loser, in your mother's basement, healthy, you don't go to the doctor that much. You don't spend that much on healthcare because you're healthy. There's a higher average spending in this category, which implies to us that some people in this category do need a lot of health care. And if there are a few outliers that drive the average up so much higher than the median, that should imply to you that there are some people in this category who aren't that healthy. And he thinks we should take their health care away. I find it frustrating that his logic doesn't even make sense. If they are healthy, they're not spending any money because they're healthy. If they're not healthy, maybe it makes sense to take care of them. I can see the cold economic appeal of what this guy is saying. Hey, if we take away people's health insurance, we're likely to motivate them to work, and we'll save money by not providing them health care. But I get frustrated when people like this guy pretend to have an underlying philosophy, but really what they're doing is just saying whatever might be useful to defend whatever Donald Trump wants to do today.
That's it right there.
Yeah, that's it right there.
As they say in the kids' vernacular, the math ain't mathin'. Right? Isn't that what they say?
But I tell you what is mathin'. For free safety net organizations like ours who already have taken massive losses, this is going to cause more people to be uninsured, more people who cannot afford plans like the Affordable Health Care Act. And this is going to bring more people to the doorstep of us safety net clinics. Medicaid, we don't accept it because, you know, we are serving those who fall between the cracks. So you don't have coverage, or you have a small amount, like a family planning Medicaid that only covers you for something like birth control, right? Those folks can come to us. What this is going to do is increase the numbers of people who have healthcare concerns that are costly, who no longer have coverage, and they're going to need care. We're going to literally lose people. We're going to have people dying unnecessarily because they can't get care. And they're going to come to the already stressed out nonprofits and safety net medical providers. And we're going to try to do everything we can to give them care with the less resources that we now have. And we're going to try to save people's lives as we've been doing since we've, started this work. And you're going to have people like this saying, hurt more people.
Yep.
Because that's exactly what this is.
That's what that is. And we'll go even further and say, like, from a Medicaid standpoint, I can already tell you, like, I have clients that are needing more hours, but they can't get more hours because per county, the funds have already started to be impacted.
Exactly.
So you have people who are bedridden in their homes that they most likely own because they're elderly. And I think that is a reversal of the system that will end up, if you owned a home and you're trying not to go into a nursing home, you're trying to hold on to your own property, you will lose your Medicaid. And what's going to happen is you're going to have to come out that home and end up in a nursing home.
But you can't afford the nursing home.
You can't. So you've lost your home and you've lost your health care.
Yep.
It is a domino effect.
Now, do these include the patients that were watching Fox News when you walk into the room?
No, they cash paying.
Well, one of the ways that this bill is going to implement these cuts are through, and you heard a little bit here, work requirement provisions.
Yeah.
So somehow we've got it in our society that your health, your ability to seek care, if you've had a heart attack or you have cancer or diabetes, is you have to be a half-time at least working individual. Like there's a link there somehow that was invented that I don't know why. I mean, I can use the roads outside and I don't have to be working to prove that I can use the roads. There are certain services, I think,
but
like health.
I'm glad that showed, because your question becomes like, that's why I don't like 60-second clips or minute clips, because and I don't like headlines because you ain't getting what you need in here. But when you're looking at this, what percentage of the Medicaid recipients are actually not working?
Yeah.
Most are working and working multiple jobs
to survive.
To
survive, or they're not doing it. There is a clear pattern of ignorance that goes along with people who are not in these positions, who don't know these folks, who don't work with them, who don't care for them, but they have a very ignorant view of saying people need to get up and, pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
But you got to have a boot.
And you got to have a boot. And here's the other thing. they're pulling themselves up without the boot, but they're pulling you along and taking care of you and putting money in your pocket, because most of the jobs they're doing are creating revenue for other people, and it's not creating revenue for themselves.
Oh, that's good.
So what we have to do is stop believing the hype and the thing that has been said and told, because again, I go back to history and I go back to education. If you really look at it and educate yourselves, it is not true. And so we have a large amount of people who believe these things, and they're not true, they're not just, and they're not even close to hitting the mark.
No.
And we are going to be killing people.
It's not even an opinion, because this whole concept of work requirements has been implemented in certain states throughout the country already. So you can look at the impacts. And according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, implementing work requirements on a national scale, requiring states to verify individuals' monthly work status at least every 6 months, and implementing a long list of exemptions are policies that proved challenging for, guess which state? Arkansas. They tried to operationalize that, and it led to 18,000 people losing coverage in Arkansas. Now, you're telling me that those were 18,000 freeloaders working off the gravy train of Medicaid? Again, as we saw, it's not a gravy train. You only use it when you're ill. 18,000 people could not get the medical coverage they needed in Arkansas. So now you take that brilliant plan and apply it nationwide.
Well, I'm glad you brought up, and I'm going to jump in here, the Kaiser Family Foundation, because I also looked at some information from them, and there's a coverage gap, and they are estimating that there are 65,000 people, adults only, not even talking about children, in South Carolina that are going to lose that coverage gap, and they're going to be too poor for marketplace subsidiary, and they're going to have ineligibility for Medicaid, and they're already under the state rule, but they're going to lose additional coverage. So you're talking about 18,000 in Arkansas. Let's talk about the 65,000 here in South Carolina.
Yeah, but that's why you got to protect that CHIPS program.
Yeah.
And they after it, and they are going to wipe the CHIPS program out. They don't want it to be called, I don't care who you call it, Obamacare, somebody care, but that needs to be in existence because of those gaps. That we're going to have that provision, and so many people will go. And if we're truly concerned about the health of our state and our nation and the educational levels of our state and our nation, don't you know that a sick body is not an able body? You got to be healthy in order to go to school and learn. Right. I don't care how good the teacher is. And you got to be healthy in order to come on these jobs and stay here and work. I don't care how great the pay is. If you are physically unable to work because you don't have access to health care, you're going to be doing the opposite. You're going back to where they're trying to pull you from. Give the people the health care and the resources that's necessary. Maslow's hierarchy of need.
Oh, stop. Yes. You bring that up every episode.
Because it matters.
And because it's true.
And people still ain't got it.
Black, white, and Maslow in the South.
Put them in there. We got to get that trademarked. Put them in there.
Well, that last clip I want to give credit to came from a TikTok account called I Think So. Didn't give his real name, but I have a link to that in the show notes. This next clip is one that explains how these Medicaid work requirements actually happen. This came from Seize the Means Shirts on Instagram. Let's take a look. Now, he play acts.
Okay.
He does two roles. He talks about somebody who's being forced on these Medicaid work requirements, and then the Republican lawmaker who's imposing them.
Okay.
So let's hear how they play this out.
You want Medicaid? Just fill these out. What is this? Work requirements. You only get Medicaid if you work. I do work. You can't work too much. What's too much? Well, if you make more than $27,000 a year, you don't qualify, which I know it's not enough to live, but I don't make the rules. You do make the rules. Oh, yeah. Well, better get to it. Those forms aren't going to fill themselves out. I need to prove I worked 80 hours, and every hour needs to be proven individually? How am I supposed to piece my life together like this every single month? Well, you only got to do that if you're within a certain age group. Which age group? 19 to 65. What? Okay, I do contract jobs, so my hours are inconsistent. Too bad. Well, what if I work 85 hours this month, but I only get 75 hours of work the next month? You're out of luck. No averages. So if you can't complete the 80 hours, you're just gonna have to fill these out. More forms? Yep, more forms. Oh my God, why is this so confusing? That's the point. It's really hard to tell if I'm exempt or not, and I'm sure it's gonna be for anyone that's between jobs or self-employed or does gig work. Tell it to somebody who cares. What about my friends who are caregivers of children or pregnant? What about people with disabilities? Shouldn't they be exempt? Yeah, they're exempt. But they're gonna have to prove it to us. How? More paperwork, of course. What about if they don't realize they're exempt or follow those steps? Yeah, that happens all the time. Hold on, I'm reading here that over 90% of Medicaid beneficiaries are already working or exempt. Did you know that? We did know that. But this is gonna make so many people lose benefits just because they can't jump over these bureaucratic hurdles. Yeah, probably like 7.7 million. Why would you want to do that? Because we want to boost employment. Is there any evidence that work requirements do that? Nope. So you're just cutting Medicaid. Okay, it may seem like these are Medicaid cuts because so many people will be cut from Medicaid, but if you work, you're fine. Here are all my forms. You are not fine. Why not? Well, you need to verify your address and your income every 6 months, and you just missed the window. So you're cutting my Medicaid even though I work just because I didn't get my paperwork in on time? Wow, when you put it that way, I guess we are cutting Medicaid. Oh well, at least our donors are happy. Next!
Every one of that's based in fact, reading this bill.
That's why they want to keep the population uneducated.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the kicker, and I'm going to conclude with this thought. All of these changes that we've talked about, all this discussion, doesn't even kick in until after the midterms next year. Did you know that?
Yep.
So these work requirements, this paperwork, all that stuff happens after the November elections of 2026.
Yes.
Because if they were implemented today,
they wouldn't make it.
It would be a riot. And
you know what that shows you?
Think about that.
They shows you that they know exactly where the majority of the benefits are going.
Yeah.
They know the breakdown of the benefits, so they can't do it now because if they do it, Republicans who've traditionally voted Republican will change because they see how it will impact
If there
them
was
as
such
well.
widespread abuse and such opportunity, why wouldn't they implement this as fast as humanly possible? But no, they timed it for after the election because they know exactly what's going to happen when this kicks in.
Gosh.
Scary stuff. Scary stuff.
Indeed it
And if you had
is.
just the iota of thought process, you would figure this out.
Just a tad bit.
That's all.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. Don't pack up yet, Teresa. We still got another half hour of closing.
No, we don't.
we like to drag this out.
I thought we were going to end happy.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed what you heard today. Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of this show. We really want to know what you think. Your reviews drive search engines and make us more visible to new subscribers. If you do that, Jamil will promise to fill out all of your Medicaid work requirement forms for you.
Lies.
You can reach out to her at blackwhiteblueinthesouth@gmail.com. If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith, keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication. For our closing quote today, I'm actually going to play a clip, who has been in the news and a champion of free speech and liberty and fighting back against this fascist government. And I want to play a little bit of Jimmy Kimmel's return to the air from Tuesday night. Let's listen to what Jimmy had to say.
Jimmy.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. I've had the opportunity to meet and spend time with comedians and talk show hosts from countries like Russia, countries in the Middle East, who tell me they would get thrown in prison for making fun of those in power, and worse than being thrown in prison. They know how lucky we are here. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Steven off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous. I want you to think about this. The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS. Then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make millions of dollars. And I hope that if that happens, or if there's even any hint of that happening, you will be 10 times as loud as you were this week. We have to speak out against this because he's not stopping. And it's not just comedy. He's gunning for our journalists, too. He's suing them. He's bullying them. Over the weekend, his foxy friend Pete Hegseth announced a new policy that requires journalists with Pentagon press credentials to sign a pledge promising not to report information that hasn't been explicitly authorized for release. That includes unclassified information. They want to pick and choose what the news is. I know that's not as interesting as muzzling a comedian, but it's so important to have a free press, and it is nuts that we aren't paying more attention to it.
I would never believe 30 years ago that Jimmy Kimmel would become the voice of freedom in America. If you knew what he was doing back then in the day, you'd look at him and go, what? Really? That guy? That guy is going to go up against the President of the United States for First Amendment rights?
He shouldn't even have to do that.
Right. Well, Teresa, we thank you so much for spending half your day with us today. It has been wonderful. And we look forward to seeing what happens to you in the future.
Yeah,
we may have to have you back.
Yeah. The end.
The preceding podcast is solely owned by its host or hosts and is distributed by Big Media LLC. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved.